Hey, everybody. Hey, my people. Happy Friday to you all. I hope everyone had a blessed and productive week. I don't even know what to try to have a little light talk before we get into this reunion talk, but Ready to Love is the reunion. The reunion first part was tonight, and I again was shocked. I was shocked by the reunion. I'm glad you guys are here and ready to start talking about it. I see you guys have been in the comments already. So I have to say, before we get started with tonight, we do have Frank here. He is our gracious guest for tonight, which actually makes sense because we definitely want to talk to him after tonight's reunion special. But we will have Phil will be rescheduled another time. He had a work conflict, and so if you do see a picture of Phil, we did change it out to Frank, but if some of you guys see a picture of Phil, that should change after this broadcast. But hey, I don't want to. I didn't even get any clips for tonight, y'all. I just want to have this conversation. We're going to start with Frank. He is here and he is looking well. Please help me welcome Frank to the Reality Check Recap. Welcome, Frank.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm really well, actually. Thanks for asking.
You have a good week?
Thus far, it's been great. It's been productive, healthy, staying out of COVID's way.
Well, I like your backdrop. I like your backdrop here. That's very picturesque. You got the picture, the black and white pictures, and then you got the color on your shirt. I'm on board, Frank.
I figured I'd give myself a little bit more pop, but we gotta give some ambiance as well.
I like it. Well, like I said, welcome. Tonight's reunion, did you watch it?
I watched the entirety of it.
And of course you were actually there, so even what we don't know. I don't even know where to start. I was very I've said this the entire season. Ready to Love, we feel like gives us a reflection of what's going on in the regular world, but I think this season we saw some things that we hadn't seen before. There's always something that comes out that production's able to show us a different issue over here and a different issue over there. Let me ask you this to start off. The tension that we saw tonight, are you all able to get to a better place as a cast
So there is there's a definitive divide. Specifically, it's not this camp against that camp, or it's not like egregious to the extent that like we want to just like call these people out on a constant basis. But it's like, who do we hang out with? The majority of my cast last week when we watched the finale, the majority of us watched it together. There are a few people who weren't with us, but when I say a few, about four, right? Five total. Five total. And in that, those five, there's really two that just don't talk to everybody.
Cornelius?
Well, no, we all talk to Cornelius. We might not talk to Camille. It'd be more so Camille and Zadia. And then there are some people who are still in contact with Shiloh, but I haven't talked to her pretty much since the show stopped airing.
So we noticed that she was unable to make the reunion. Do you know why?
I am not going to speculate on why she wasn't there. I believe that, in my own opinion, some of it had to do with her and Phil's issue or situation, and just it was a comfort thing. You could ask any question. I'm going to answer it the best of my ability, but I'm not going to speak on somebody else's behalf. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, no, we're not asking you to do that. If you don't feel comfortable, just say, "Hey, I don't want to answer that," and you have that's more than within your right to do that. So let's start. Before we get into tonight, because we got to ask you some questions.
I got answers
about what we saw tonight. But let's start. I want to go back a little bit because we haven't got a chance to talk to you until now. So some of your castmates we've talked to, through this process we've been watching, but we are seeing you at the very end. So what were you looking for signing up for Ready to Love? Were you genuinely wanting to find a relationship? Was this something that you agreed to do because you didn't something to do. Why did you sign up for the show?
I'm a bona fide lover. I understand the meaning of it. I know what love is. I grew up within it in such a heavy capacity, and within doing so, I think I've been, cliche, ready to love for a little over a decade now. I didn't have many girlfriends and growing up, and so like as a child, like I had friends. Of course, we make connections, but the truth was that I'm very much a stronghold on what my relationship status looks like or is, simply because I don't like to waste time. I don't. I think I am a good judge of character. Actually, I know I'm a good judge of character, and therefore I also know what's good for me. I'm rather picky, and in doing so, it's come to the point where I'm genuinely, that's what I'm actually looking for. I'm looking for that final piece of the puzzle, a partner for my future. Ready to love. Prior to me even finding out about it, the way I got on this, at least got the initial application, was a friend of mine who's a woman, thought that I would be good for it. She heard about the auditions and decided to send it to my email. From that point, I went along the entirety of the process to get to the point, and I did some more research on what the show was before even submitting. And then between talking to producers, doing personality tests, making sure that you're not a hazard to the show or a liability. I got to a point where it was very real to me. And the one scenario here is that you're taking a huge leap of faith, right? Ready to Love is truly speed dating on crack. In that regard, it's consistent. It's sometimes overwhelming. It's a pressure cooker. But for me, it was also an extreme way to find, that inevitable somebody that for me would be absolutely wonderful. Like, hey, guess what? I get to tell my children one day, guess how I met your mother, and you can watch it for the rest of your lifetime. So I think I've taken just about every avenue within the DMV to find my significant other, but I subscribe to the fact that there's 7.8 billion people on this planet. So it's like, I take it every day at a time. I don't rush anything. I keep my eyes open, I keep my heart open. The realistic scenario is not only am I picky, but it's because I don't want to hurt somebody. I don't want to get hurt myself.
Yeah. Now you say you're picky. Let's delve into that a little bit. What does that mean? What does that mean?
Let me state, like, very humbly, that I know that I am, I carry myself different than most people. I subscribe to that. I love that about myself. You know what I mean? I have a lot of beneficial parts about me, and I actually look at humanity as a whole. And that's, like, at the end of the day, I just want to be a positive role in society. So it takes somebody to, like, fill that gap of also being, a positive individual, say like Mumen, who has great morals, who is connected to God, who has charisma, who's open to different walks of life, who values love just as intimately as I do. But then also in that standpoint, it's like I have aspirations, I have goals, I have, circumstances of my life that are going to take a lot of trust, and so therefore I just make sure that person can fit within that similar mold. They don't have to be the same person as me, because who wants to, go to sleep with themselves? But at the end of the day, we do need to mesh, and we do need to trust that we have a future.
Yeah. So I didn't hear anything about physical. What's your
that,
physical?
It's funny. I'll bring this up really quick. One big conversation that got, put into my narrative is the notion of me being like hypersexual, right? Which was something that came out of my mouth, right? Yeah, absolutely. I own up to my shit. But the fact of the matter is that I wouldn't have stated that if it wasn't for the circumstance that, like, sex is something that, like, I know it really well. I have had more than enough of it. But
Frank, how do you know that because it's one thing to say that you've had a lot of sex.
Yeah.
You could say. It's another thing to say that you're there, that you know it well, that you're very good at it. That's probably a personal
preference. My point is no, absolutely. But there's a track record, but that's not what I'm going for right now. My point is that the physical, like like I said, I subscribe to the 7.8 billion people on this planet. I literally love so many different styles of people. As for women, what I'm attracted to, I can find beauty in just about anybody and everybody, whether it be, you know, I love your manicure or your nose or your, you know, something about you physically can turn me on in some aspect. It doesn't mean that that's what I go for. Your personality, your mind, your emotions, your actual heart, those are actual things that work out for me. So
yeah.
Physical really doesn't, it's not my thing to like call out as like a checklist of like what I really like. Okay, sure. I like fat asses.
Right. You don't have
I
like
I like fat asses and long legs if we're just being blunt.
There we
But
go.
you know,
Okay.
you know what I mean? If I'm just
Give me
being blunt.
something.
But what I'm trying to get at is like I went on a show knowing that I was gonna run into 10 women. It came out to be 11 women. The 2 women that I ended up with are, you know, in essence, polar opposites in looks, right?
Yeah,
so therefore, I don't have a definitive, you know what I mean, of what physically.
Right. I don't have a definitive. So when was your last relationship? Like when does the last time that you actually were in a committed relationship that you put that woman that woman was a priority to you?
That would be exactly 4 years ago. Coming up on this March is when it ended. So, you know, that was a big part of this. You know, it's like I submerged myself into my work. I really took, you know, the emphasis of like, yo, put your best foot forward in any part of your life that was going to be like great, and that was my occupation for me. I had some like. I had some people that I dated, right? But like nobody was like actually titled my girlfriend. You know what I mean? My lover, my parent.
So this relationship ended. It sounded like this was one you were very vested in.
I was in it for 4.5 years.
Okay. So is it safe to say that you were very hurt after that and needed some time to heal?
Absolutely. I was genuinely in love with this person. You know, it just didn't work out. But for multiple reasons. But at that point in time, I'm now 35. So 4.5 years ago, I was, you know, just about to turn 30 or 31. Sorry, I was 30. And what worked out for me was that, you know, I just really just needed to tap into myself. That was part of also like stepping away. It's like I realized that there are some factors that are they're non-disputing. Like I just like some people are just not going to be my cup of tea. You know, I'm not going to be somebody's, you know, shot of whiskey. But at the end of the day, it was like, what really values for myself? What's really here that is going to allow me to have some success later in life?
Yeah. Yeah. So okay, we could take because I think that was referenced in the conversation that happened tonight is that you had gotten hurt before and maybe that's why you weren't able to really. But before we go to that, because we definitely, you know, everybody is here to hear your explanation of that. I think a lot of people could really empathize and felt for Mumen tonight. But we still don't know a lot of your perspective through the process. So, you know, we did see you get to know both Sydney and Mumen towards the end, but earlier in the season, we saw there was like a small connection you had with Aisha. We saw you interacting with a lot of different women, and so just to hear your side of how this whole thing has gone, and you were able to kind of make your choices and get to the end. I'm not gonna lie, Frank, I didn't expect you and Mumen to end up together.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, your personalities, I didn't see that. But then when I saw you all with your families, and I was like, oh, they have a different type of connection, one that we're not seeing. So take us back, Frank. Take us back to when you saw the lady at the mixer. What's going on in your head? Who are you initially feeling? How do you start this process?
Out the gate, I walk in. I'm super happy. I'm excited. You know, I'm hopeful. It was given like put your best foot forward and jump out of a window and see if anybody catches you. Out the gate, I was attracted because it was one of the first people I saw. We all came in at different times, right? One of the first people I saw was Courtney. Courtney's just, you know, tall, immediately just like the statuesque individual, super beautiful, you know, natural curly hair. I would add that to my physical attractions, right? You know, from that point, people already were wrapping up, you know, some of the women. Some people were taking more of a direct approach, or, you know, like really asserting themselves. I kind of read the room and kind of, you know, make sure that when I do approach somebody, that it is genuine, that I'm actually like just not coming up to them based off of the fact that like I physically am attracted to you. But that's the first thing you see, and that's kind of the direction that you go. From there, I eventually talked to Aisha, and that was just me and Aisha full cheese, like just our smile constantly, just like nonstop. Yeah. It was a real conversation to the point where it was like it was hard to not talk to her, but you do have to survey the rest of the people in the building, right? From that point, I ended up talking to Camille as well as Mumen as a collective. And that was the first time we all realized our one initial true connection, which was that we were all African, right? Like, you know, either one direct generation like myself, like first person in my family born in America, or, you know, two parts apart. And that's when Mumen initially like jumped out at me, and like I really was like, okay, this is somebody I do want to have more conversations with. I am attracted to her physically, and it does feel right. I mean, just from, you know, the initial conversation. Talked to Libba as well. I made sure that I talked to every single woman there. And towards the end of the night, I had more so a feeling of who I wasn't attracted to, or who I wasn't gonna see a future with, you know, at all. And the realistic circumstance was one of those people is Libba, who I had mentioned. And it wasn't because Libba's not a great woman. Me and Libba talk almost every single day, whether it be in the DMs or whatever, you know. But then also Camille. And it was because I picked up on some like hesitant notions about her, just some, you know, lack of like positivity. I'm kind of you know, a egregiously happy person. Like, you know, I'm a optimistic realist, right? So it's like I walked into that knowing that this could be a good circumstance, so why not put on a good face? And it seemed like she time and time again wasn't having a great time, and I mentioned that to Tommy, you know, and eventually that came up in another conversation with me and Camille, and we addressed it.
So what Libba, it just was what was the no there?
It was just a feeling. It was just a feeling that, like, I mean, between our age differences, our personalities would be great as friends, but, you know, I couldn't see myself going home to her every single day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we did see that. We didn't get a chance to see the three of you guys have that conversation, but like I said, once we saw you all together,
that conversation was trumped by what was going on with Corey throughout the evening. You know what I mean? Yeah, because I'll say this: the first four women across the board that like I made strong enough connections with, that like were throughout the time, the duration of when we were on the show, was like really what I was like trying to figure out who and what. It was Sabrina, Aisha, and this is going to sound odd, and Mumen. And then of course what happened afterwards was then Sydney came in. So the four women that made it to the end were truly the four women that I was actually connected throughout. And I just did my due diligence to find my way down this process to figure out who made the most sense for me. And also, it's not solely about me. It was if that person also connects with me with that kind of, you know, to that level. And that was, you know, how the cookie crumbled.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that thought that you really wanted to choose Sydney, but because you saw her kind of gravitating more towards Phil, that you decided to go hard with Mumen. What is your
So hear me out. Sydney's and my relationship started off strong, right? From the second we were at the pool and we really started to talk, like we really just started to vibe with each other. But we had seen each other. We didn't know each other, right? Do I think she's absolutely beautiful? Yes, but beauty doesn't carry a conversation with me. You know what I mean? It was like, who are you? How do I get to know you? And forth and going from there. At the end of the day, what ended up happening was I was literally in so many different scenes on so many different dates. What you guys don't see is I went on like 4 dates with Mumen and Sydney. They just didn't show them. We went to, me and Mumen went to a cavern together. We also went to the bowling circumstance, right? Swingers. Me and Sydney, we were at, you know, multiple different restaurants, but we hung out afterwards. What I found out is, to be quite honest, besides like me and Sydney's relationship, like that is, so fun and flirtatious and bold. It wasn't just Sydney saying that, oh, I'm seeing him more as a friend. It was me too. And when it came down to it, there's more scenes towards that last episode where we actually sat down and the two of us actually talked about the fact that this is what we'd probably be best case scenario. So we actually talked that out. We were like, hey, like, let's be friends. Let's really go after what makes the most sense and like who is going to be the best case scenario for both of us. And for her, it was Phil. And for me, it was Mumen. And we were amicable about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got to ask you the question, because I will say out of all the women, I feel like Mumen has such, at least from what we see, such a sweet spirit. She's beautiful. And she really, I really believe that she was there for the right reasons. And I feel like, some like Sabrina was on Monday. I love Sabrina, but I know Sabrina can take care of herself. Like I feel like Sabrina got it. Mumen seems like that little sister. You're gonna be like, oh, she's so sweet. Like she just seems so naive and so sweet. So when we saw tonight the fact that you guys had not talked since that decision day, and you could see that she really didn't understand it. It was disappointing, and I think most of the fans would agree. So what happened, Frank?
So, and this is not here. Let me clarify a few things because I also can see these comments, off to the right. So Mumen is not young. Mumen is actually older than me. She's 36. Mumen has been in multiple relationships in her past, and just like myself, has also been hurt by her previous partners. Myself and Mumen have very similar trajectories, whether it be our career paths, how successful we are within our own specific occupations, our actual values, the type of people that we like, and how we have conversations. What me and Mumen talk about on a daily basis, even still this day, because I need everybody to know this, we're good. We've been good since the show. I gave her some time, allowed her space, but I did want her to be, I did want her to know that that wasn't just a ploy to be like, hey, I wanted to make it to the end. Because we did end up talking. We did end up hanging out more. That was when I started to realize other circumstances about myself. And this is how I'm going to get into that. What you don't see off camera, and even what you see on camera, is a lot of editing. So there's a lot of things that are cut out. And, there's a lot of times where like true emotion, your genuine heart, and like our conversations just don't show up. There's just not enough time, within that hour. What ended up happening between Mumen and myself is like literally as I left the show, as we left recording, it was 2.5 months of my life that you really couldn't do much else. Like you couldn't work, you spent all your time, even when the cameras were off, trying to really make these valuable connections. And it really did stress me out. I ended up doing something I hadn't done since I was 8 years old, and realizing that, my thoughts weren't, really connecting. Something that for me is, I'm typically cool, calm, collective, and have a lot of clarity. I'm the person that people go to for advice, but I couldn't even give myself advice. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if I was depressed. I didn't know if I all of a sudden needed to be diagnosed with ADHD. I didn't know if I needed Ritalin or Adderall, but I knew something was off. And so I started going to therapy. This was roughly around the second week of October, and I've gone every single Wednesday at 2 p.m. and it really helped. But even my therapist diagnosed me with a level of PTSD that came from the shock of the show. Leaving the show, I needed to ground myself again. And it took me a while to do that. And it took going to therapy. And I literally stepped away from just about everything: close friends, family, and of course, unfortunately, Mumen, because I just didn't really know where to go with my thoughts, or how to tell her that, these things were happening to me. And so from that point, it was like, I did take too long. I took too long to actually give her, the conversation that she deserved, to tell her what was happening with me. And a couple of weeks prior to the reunion, we started talking again. I did express all of the above. We were on, the same page. What you saw with Mumen being shocked on stage was specifically to the comment of me saying that our contact seemed to move too fast, right? I do see everybody saying, do better, and they're not wrong. I take full responsibility of that. circumstance. Like I actually
What,
should.
can
Yeah.
you explain to us? Because I think, everyone interprets things differently. So you can't say what something does to one person, it may not have a different effect on someone else.
Right.
I'm just wondering for you, as you're going through the process, for you to get to that point right after decision day, what were you feeling
It wasn't right
prior?
after decision day. It wasn't right after decision day. It was literally a month later.
So did you
So
talk to her after
So
decision day?
some people, yes, absolutely. We all went out as like a collective. She slept over at my house. Like there was a lot that happened from that time period. I mean, maybe not as much as you should when you connect with somebody and you say that you're going to try to produce a future with them. That I
Right.
admit, but it wasn't. I left from the National Harbor, walked away from the sand, and just never said anything, to Mumen again until the
Well, I guess
reunion.
I'm trying to figure out what were you experiencing? What were you experiencing during shooting?
Yeah.
Besides just obviously being busy, but I think just because like I said, everybody responds.
No, during shooting, that was the thing. When we finally stopped shooting and I started to try to collect my thoughts, all you think about when you're shooting is that, like, you know what I mean? You're like, you are actually in it to win it, in the essence of like, I really want somebody to love. I really think that Mumen is that person. I thought that Sydney could be that person, but at the end of the day, I'm the last person to have finally made a decision. Some people's decisions were made for them. Either their connection left, either because they got eliminated or because they chose to self-eliminate, or some circumstances like say Mumen and Walter, right? They fizzled. So then you go to your other person, right? Like I actually had intentful thinking from day one to get to a point where I was like, I'm going to make a genuine decision about who I want to be with, right? And even that it took till the last week, I feel like I actually took the process serious. I cared to take the process serious, regardless of how I look on paper. So I was really happy. I expressed myself, adamantly to Mumen when we were, choosing one another. I felt everything that she was saying, and she felt everything I was saying. It was literally, as I stepped away, my communication failed because it just all hit me. It was like, a ton of bricks. Like you finally, try to woosah and you realize you can't catch your breath. And then you're trying to figure out why. And for the first time in, say like 2 decades, like I felt lost. I like really felt lost, and I couldn't figure out like who, what, or where was the cause of it. And so therefore I needed an unbiased conversation to really get that off my chest. And at the time I didn't think Mumen was that person to talk to, even though I could have given her a little bit more information than I was. You know what I mean?
So, right. So when you did talk to her finally, because one of the things that stood out to me and you all's conversation there on the harbor was she said, as long as you do what you say, I'm trusting what you say. And that made me think that she likes him, but she knows there's a part of her that her intuition is kicking in and saying there could be some behavior that doesn't match up with these words. At least that's how it read, and that's what happened. But when you guys did talk, what did you say to her? I mean, because obviously she was
okay.
hurt.
Yeah. So when we finally discussed like what I was going through and why I was distanced, I expressed everything that I'm expressing to you now, like some of the circumstances about me just feeling lost in my own thoughts, the fact that like I was having a hard time, like, getting out of bed some days, where my motivation was coming from. I'm building this, business that I'm super happy about. I've had so much success in my own industry. And then I'm learning that throughout the process that either my communication, which is why Mumen felt to say what she said at the end, right? She felt like my communication earlier, a few other women say, Sabrina, when I had to tell her that the men were deliberating on the possibility of, eliminating her. And she was like, you call me, but sometimes I don't hear back from you. You know what I mean? And you go on it with great intentions. Do you always put your best foot forward? Do you always make the right decisions? No, but that's being human. At the end of the day, like I literally tried to learn every single day to be a better guy. I realized I was out of practice in dating. I hadn't dated in 4 years. So those are my honest truths. So I'm giving Mumin all of this information, and being the wonderful, amazing person, empathetic, sympathetic individual that she is, she understood it. She knew she was finally hearing the truth she was hearing another iteration of my truth, and she accepted that. And at that point, it's like, all right, well, let's move forward. We don't have to force it. We don't have to just automatically be girlfriend and boyfriend. Let's be friends and build something. And I was genuine to that extent. It was just literally when we were on stage at the reunion, the one thing that she heard was that I guess I wasn't clear to her when I first started talking to her to try to mend this situation, was that our contact wasn't the way I wanted it to be, right? Like there are certain things that I felt that, not to like try to embarrass her, because I mean, she's so wonderful. Like, why would I throw another black person or a black woman under the bus about something that I have an insecurity about our relationship? So these were things I was willing to only say to an extent on the show, but then I further expressed myself so that she had more clarity afterwards. You know what I mean? It's like,
so did you guys? Where were you before the reunion? Were you hoping to have this friendship that could possibly turn into something, or did you just want to go back to just friends?
Yes.
And that's where we are.
Yes. A friendship that had the possibility of turning into something that we initially embarked on. Yes. The door was open, and that's my comfort level with Mumin is, when we're around each other, it's as if like nothing changed. Like she's in my arms, we're hanging, we talk. I can say anything to her. I'm kind of a outlandish individual in that way, is that like I literally say what's on my mind, but I am mindful of the thoughts that come out of my mouth. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm also not trying to get misscrewed. If I do get caught in the essence where like I sound like I'm gibberish or I'm talking too much, maybe how some people feel about me right now, it's because I'm methodical. I'm very meticulous and I have a great vocabulary. So I'm going to use as much words to get as much clarity as possible. You choose to believe it, whether or not you want to. I really don't give a damn, because I am opening up at that point. I'm being real.
I don't think it's like in that vein.
You would think so, but the Twitter and every other comment section says otherwise. You know what I mean? So you just kind of have to know to take those knocks.
Yeah, there's always trolls, but I think that when people watch this show, the reason that it's a trigger is because most of us have been hurt. Most of us have had someone waste our time. Most of us, whether it's a male or female, everyone's been hurt at this point in their life. So when you see something and it reminds you of being in that predicament, people are responding, and a lot of times they're responding from a very personal place.
For sure.
Yeah, which
and value that like there are circumstances within this that I spoke of. There are things that should have come to light within our season that you don't get from other Black programmings. You don't get in conversation amongst African American or Black people, and some of that has to do with like notions of colorism or abuse, or and so I speak up on those circumstances, right? Not to get vindication, but to just truly like give an insight that, we're mindful of it. You should be mindful of it if you're not. And then ultimately just, respect for the common person. And, so I tried my best to always put my best foot forward and respect these women. And specifically the ones that I made my best relationship with.
If you saw, I'm going to ask you this question, and I want to go to kind of pivot to something else. But if you were Mumi's friend, not dating her, but if you're one of her friends or her family members, would you think that Frank wasted her time?
Yeah, I'd give you a candid circumstances that at this point, if you saw everything, you would think that I wasted her time. The truth is, at the end of the day, she's also trying to find somebody, to be with. But the best case scenario was the two of us really coming together. I don't regret at all, pursuing Mumin. I don't regret finalizing the show with Mumin, because it wasn't about the show. It was about the connection. It's just that, certain extremes happen. Like I literally just didn't feel like myself. And
you couldn't control that.
Yeah, I couldn't control that. I couldn't control that part. But at the end of the day, it did add up. But you have to understand, me and Mumin's relationship really started to like build up towards the end of this towards the end of the journey, right? So, you know, some people were like, oh, like his this isn't going to work out because she's a church girl and he's been in clubs. I'm like, one, I own a bar and own a beverage brand. I don't like clubs at all, but I also love church.
She says that she's celibate, and you.
So even celibate, right? Mumen is structured exactly like you see her, except she has more to her. I wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, and who cares if she's celibate?
Right, but if you're saying
I started this conversation off with like the fact that sex wasn't in my equation.
Yeah,
I would like to know how we kiss, how we hold hands, how we walk down the street together. Those things physically, I want to know. But like, sex means shit. Like, it really doesn't, you know. And the reason I say that is because, like, if you're really valuing a genuine relationship, you really care to open up to somebody and really care about their heart, that portion of the physical does not actually equate to like what the big picture is. And so
it doesn't. But if a person is celibate until marriage, and another person is very sexual, that could be a huge conflict. You know,
except Mumen here. So hear this out. So Mumen might not be into having sex, but Mumen will tell you herself that she's one, a very affectionate, very passionate woman herself. Mumen's not going to fall back and like not kiss me in public because she's worried about, you know, the perception of, you know, the outside world or the church going individual. Like that physical communication, we actually had that was probably our most comforting. Like literally the fact that like if she's around me, she's either tucked into me or sitting on my lap, which I contradicted on the show tonight because eventually it just didn't feel as comfortable as I wanted it to. But mind you, that's telling you that like obviously the physical wasn't my like first intuition to like care about. Like sex is sex, you know. I literally only value that but so much. And so Mumen is one of those people that like you really have to get to know her. You're not going to figure out anything from her in on this TV show. And I feel the same way about myself. The word hypersexual, though, you got to understand, like outside of also owning a beverage brand, I also have a sex positive podcast. It's called Talk Normal to Me, and it normalizes the notions of sexual interests and desires and kinks and relationships while debunking stigmas. So I literally constantly talk about sex to the point where I am comfortable with that notion, with all ends of the rainbow, all ends of the spectrum, the ubiquitous scale, all of the above. So that's when I say I'm hypersexual, is because like it's part of my lifestyle. Like Walter's the same person in that aspect where he literally he used to have like a traveling sex show. Comedy show. You know what I mean? But is that all we are because of that? You know what I mean? That's just one adjective comparative to,
it's not all you are, but it definitely, all the pieces of who we are kind of come together and add up, you know, to
exactly. So if that's the case, then you have to give leeway to the fact that like that's only one piece of the puzzle, and it might seem more important to others, but it wasn't what led us to each other.
Important to you. Okay. Well, if you guys are just joining us, we are, of course, this is the recap after Ready to Love's reunion, explosive reunion tonight. We've been talking to Frank about what happened between he and Mumen, and he's just answered that for us. So I want to take a pivot because there was a lot of other conversations that happened tonight that were difficult to watch, and I think we're probably going to see a little bit more of it next week. But I just want to ask your opinion. We saw the guys talking backstage. There's obviously a huge disconnect and a breakdown in the cast. And we see Zadia and Camille and Naeem and Cornelius all as this united front kind of anti. It almost seemed like they were prepared to, you know, go at the other castmates tonight.
I'm glad you see it that way, that they're prepared to go after the other castmates.
Well, yeah, that's just from me what I see. When I see Naeem turn towards the group and say every guy had Zadia in his top, and that's why the women are saying that she's being mean to them. I was just shocked to hear that, because
I'm gonna explain that in two folds, right? Number one, circumstances is he's right. The first week, very first men's lounge, there was a strong there was a strong opinion towards
Attraction.
Zadia. Like,
Yeah.
and like, attraction is it. Literally, Zadia's nickname is Zadi the Bot, or Zadi the Bot, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm,
so Zadia is, she's thick, she's active, she's strong, like she's got a mouthpiece on her. Like it's combative to an extent where you're like, yo, this is fun. You know what I mean? So of
mhm,
course, initially everybody's attracted to her, right? As the
mhm,
weeks go on, connections start to really start to become bonds, and not necessarily just like, oh, like I actually had a date, but like now we're on the phone with each other. We are at mixers together. We are going on set to to do the behind the scenes together, and we're starting to realize who these individuals are. The
mhm,
What ends up happening is, one, Zadia starts to slowly, if we're just going to talk about the men, she starts to slowly have only her select few, right?
mhm.
And on top of that, there are some relationships that would probably surprise people about who liked who, right?
Mhm.
Because some best friends and their like number ones actually also like Zadia, but I'm not going to get into that. My
Well,
point of saying
that's not hard to pick apart.
yeah, it's not hard to pick up on, right? But my
And that's
point,
not surprising because
right?
if you say all the men, then that includes Cornelius, and
Yeah,
she is gorgeous.
thank you.
Um, but it definitely seemed like I said,
We
there's
had
not.
a circumstance. We had a circumstance right here,
Mhm,
right? This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I'm going to. We had a
mhm,
circumstance right here. We probably shouldn't have had everybody over my apartment building. We were on my rooftop, and the night went from a bunch of people having a great time to really explosive.
mhm.
Um, and when it got explosive, which has been discussed a few times, it was definitively kind of a Camille and Zadia against Sydney's circumstance, right?
Mm,
That's something you don't see at the table when
mm,
we're at the retreat, is how much from the day that we were at my apartment and that kind of issue happened,
mhm.
um, that it then eventually turned into the Brown Girl Squad against Sydney. The
Okay.
Aisha circumstance was really just kind of like a cherry on top, realistically. And
Mhm.
that's where, they focused it, because I think they were the production was staying away from the fact that colorism was actually being, presented so
There's
strongly in depth.
Yeah. They
And
can't do that because it's obvious that that is a problem, and that also explains why Sydney was so strong to speak out, on her behalf tonight. But we've talked about that. That's it. That's very troubling to hear.
so
Women.
do you remember when well, technically, Sydney called, responded to Zadia saying that like we need to shrink our numbers, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then she called her a girl, and she was like, "My name is Zadia," and everybody was like, "That's the first time that the show seemed like it was getting messy," and we're like, "Why are the women so upset with each other?" Well,
Mhm.
only about 48 hours prior was this situation that happened on my rooftop, and so
Gotcha.
that part they can't show because there's no cameras there. But then, it's unfortunate because I hate to have any part in anybody having a negative experience in general. But
Mhm.
just the fact that they were here when it happened, at that point, now it's starting to spill over onto camera, and
Where
the
did it
circumstance,
start? What started the issue that
the
night?
issue the issue, just so I mean, I'm gonna spill it, but like I'm not, and I know some of my cast are on here. I'm literally not trying to throw anybody on the bus. This is just exactly what happened, right? So
Mhm.
we had a few people over. It was the majority of the cast except for Sydney and a few other people, right?
Mhm.
Sydney eventually came over later in the evening. We had all had drinks. I'm not saying everybody's drunk, but um, I am, in my profession, I deal with alcohol, so
Right.
right, right. And
Mhm.
so I'm also mindful of how people respond to alcohol, one for
Mhm.
their safety, as well as the fact that I'm responsible in any given circumstance of like how they get to and from, right? I started to notice that, while people were getting inebriated and more happy, there was definitely more hollering, there was definitely more excitement, more laughter. When Sydney came over, Sydney
Mhm.
was saying hi to just about everybody, and she had plugged her phone up
Mhm.
to an external speaker to charge. Eventually her phone got unplugged, and it was kind of like just like discarded, right? And she eventually figured out who did it. And she was like, all right, well, there's two women in here that haven't seemed to be very open to me. I'm not saying that she purposefully went over to Cornelius, but to like get on Camille's nerves. But Camille was sitting there talking to Cornelius, and Sydney came while we were all dancing and gave Cornelius kind of like a big hug and slightly a lap dance, right?
Okay, I did. Someone referenced that in a talk. Okay.
Camille got up and walked away from that. She was like, I'm not gonna entertain it. I'm not gonna like, you know, turn this into a fight. Well, Zadia did not. And it got to a point where it was so aggressive that men were pulling away well, specifically Zadia, who was running around in circles trying to fight Sydney at the time because words were exchanged. At that point, it just kind of never was the same. It was never just kind of the happy-go-lucky circumstance. And I think that's when like the game was started to become being played, because I feel like there were a lot of people who eventually just were trying to make it to the end. You know, however you want to perceive me, I literally had connections that I wanted to pursue, you know what I mean? But some people were actually playing to get to the end. And whether it be alliances or squads, the realistic scenario is there were pieces of puzzles that were being moved around, asking people to do certain things at the retreat to eliminate somebody or to stick around. And the thing is, we're all very close. We eventually, you know, like I said, speed dating on crack. So, you know, it's 2 degrees of separation. So these conversations came out. And so now everybody's like fuming about the fact that, you know, there are 2 to 3 women who are constantly trying to throw people under the bus. I'll say this: if they showed a lot of more of the Brown Girl Squad and how they operated, there would be no denying the fact that they weren't in this for the right reasons. You know, to say somebody's not ready to love. To say somebody's not ready to love, it's hard to say for Camille because she obviously chose Cornelius, and eventually Cornelius chose her. They're still together, you know, in some capacity. I don't know the full extent of it, but Zadia, on the other hand, literally was very. And even the reunion multiple times we were like try to stay away from the word aggressive, but you are what you are. Like if you come across with, you know, disingenuous conversation, if you stick your finger in people's faces, if you actually physically touch somebody, if you run around in circles to try to fight somebody, if you actually go out of your way to be kind of, you know, a trigger people, then you, in essence,
she called Aisha dumb. Like there was a lot said that was unfortunate. What did you think, speaking of that, when you all saw the video of Zadia and Dante, what was the conversation with the men at that point? Because I guess why I'm surprised is that production and the men, even tonight, Sydney's like, she was asking you guys to please confront Naeem, who was very, very much defending Zadia. But what were you all's conversations in, you know, amongst the men? Because if that had been a man doing that to a woman, we've said this time and time again, then the man would have been probably arrested, definitely thrown off the show. Like we wouldn't allow a man to put his finger in a woman's face and curse at her, standing over her. So what were you all saying behind closed doors, and why do you think that behavior why wasn't she held accountable for that behavior?
You just said every detail, right? So the fact of the matter is assault's assault. You know, even if it was, you know, a slight pat, right? It was unwanted. It's unconsensual. So in that, you know, there's no circumstance that we want, you know, any level of violence or perceived violence, you know, even a poke in somebody's face or somebody yelling at them hyperly aggressively. The other standpoint there is, if it was a man, you know, the perception of what that man is, in like, you would never hear the end of it, right? But the value there is like, you're a person, you know, man, woman, person, it doesn't matter, they, them, you know, it's still you against somebody else, and you actually being the aggressor, and to a point where it could be perceived as criminal.
Yeah.
Why it didn't end right then and there, as production, right? Like literally as production, because our men's conversation is, it couldn't have been me. I'm the type of person, like, I don't ever want to physically fight anybody. You know what I mean? Like, am I good at it? Yeah, I've been great at it my entire life. But at the end of the day, being an ex-linebacker, like, I take my physicality in the football field. Like, I don't have any reason for me to want to, like, show that off, or like, you know, I mean, I'm calling the cops. Like, I'm literally like, if I'm Dante, like right after we're done, if you're not going to protect me, I'm calling the cops. That was assault. No matter how egregious or how aggressive or how strong it was, that's assault. Like, we're going to discuss it. Because what happened off camera with Phil and Shiloh, which got exaggerated in my opinion, right? In my opinion, especially since I know hard details about that circumstance, I know hard details about the relationship prior to, right? But we had to have damn near a whole show about it, right? Ours only became more of a circumstance of substance because, one, of how a few of us felt during the men's lounge after it happened, right? And the clear-cut circumstance was, besides Nye, the only person that Zadia had a connection with was, the only person that she had a connection with was Nye, right? So it was like, it made the most sense that, she gets eliminated, but it wasn't like you had a full sit down with, Tommy, and actually talk this out. And we're like, hey, this is bad, this is wrong. And the rest of the nation is going to find out that you did something to this extent. We kind of watched her walk away and then come back, and you just automatically think, you're like, shit, this is going to be bad, right? Yeah. And it gets worse, because I'm sorry, but I've seen it happen again after the show, after the camera's rolling, after we're done and we're all hanging out together. It happened again. We were all together, and the aggression from Zadia towards Dante happened again. Luckily, that evening, they were able to walk away and have a pretty long talk and conversation. But it started off with somebody running up on somebody and being like, yo, what the F?
And so to me, and you don't have to answer either of these questions. I'm just going to ask them, because and this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you, but this is just my perception and asking someone that's in, part of the show. Zadia, I feel like her anger towards Dante was not necessarily because she was in love with Dante. I think she came off as very guarded. I think she was angry that he chose someone else over her. Same thing, I feel like, and this is not to discredit anyone who's ever been abused, because, like I was telling you, I know people are online are very sensitive. Everyone gets triggered by things that happen to them. But to me, from what I saw with Shiloh, she was upset with Phil because could not get him to choose her. And so then it became, because if you storm off and a guy feels you're not safe, why would you say, well, he should have just followed me? I am so glad I'm not a guy, because if a girl slammed the car door and wanted to leave, or wanted to walk out and leave down a dark alley, I'd probably be like, hey, she's got a cell phone on her, peace. But you guys are supposed to be very, supposed to be protective and all that. So my question is, do you think that these outbursts, very different situations, and I don't know all the details with Shiloh and Phil, I'm just speaking on from what we saw. If you want someone to cheat, if you feel rejected, a lot of times that can end up with me wanting to walk away and be very dramatic. And then if he doesn't follow you and plead and beg and change his mind and all, and with Zadia again, with Dante, why are you angry at him if he wants to choose dumb? It all seems to be because you're not picking that person. Do you think I'm far off with my assessment?
I don't think you're far off in the fact that it factored in, right? When we were at the retreat, there were times where the women came together to hash it out after the blow up. Not Aisha and Zadia, but Zadia and Sydney. They came together to talk it out, and for a little bit it was amicable. It was like chill, Then later in the evening, something else happened, right?
Yeah.
With Dante and Zadia, I do feel like there was some part of it that was like, it's just kind of the narrative of it. It was just kind of just telling that her issue was that she wasn't getting enough attention from him, but like that's his prerogative. Like that's his choice to go with his gut about somebody that he cares about. Guess what? The man chose right because he's still with Aisha. You know what I mean? Like, so like he, and that was something that also, started to produce late. And one of the most solid periods of time of anybody that was at the retreat that was spent was between Dante and Aisha, specifically when they were cooking, and then when they had their intimate moment when he was giving her a massage. You know what I mean? Like he was very intentful. He wasn't trying to do too much. He wasn't trying to do too little. They were very intentful, and they were making a strong bond right then and there, and they're allowed to. The issue is that Zadia has very much so put her foot in the sand on like, all right, cool, I got two, right? That's Naim, and that's Dante. Well, what the camera didn't show was she was spending a lot of time with Naim. So if you're spending a lot of time with Naim and he's spending a lot of time with Aisha, is he supposed to chase you around? He's supposed to break you and Naim up? No. And I don't think that out of respect, because that's a lot of what me and the rest of the men have for each other, right? Me and Phil are really close, right? And we were for quite some time now, but we like the same woman, and everybody's like, oh, like that should probably be a red flag. Like these two men, you can't figure it out, or she's, can't choose between them. There's a reason why we're friends. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's because we're good men that actually have similar, character traits. You may not like how it is perceived, but that's another notion behind like also why Shiloh and Phil didn't work out. And I think that very much so, if you knew every single detail, you would know that Shiloh had a hard time with any level of rejection, you know what I mean? And also played kind of a game with Phil, kind of yelled at him in multiple circumstances, was actually the aggressor. The fact that Phil stood there for hours only having one or two drinks at the bar after they were drinking, because the reason they were at the bar was it was Courtney's birthday, right? So you're celebrating. He knew he had to drive. So he was like, hey, I'm going to, chill out. And this blows up. A lot of time we're automatically judged for the fact that, listen, as men, we need to, put the best foot forward. We need to be the strong and, more valuable person. But we're in Washington, D.C. It's Chocolate City. Everybody's a strong and passionate and king and queen. Like, people don't let you forget it. It's the reason why when you go out on a date with somebody, one of the first topics of conversation is, what do you do for a living? It's because like people want to show you their stature. They want to show you their structure. So at the end of the day, it's like, we can't always be the definitives of like cool, calm, and collective. You also have to bring that to the table too. And these women showed their hand, and it's not far.
I gotta agree with you, because because I do think that all the men this season were respectful, right? Everybody was. We didn't see and I definitely tip my hat to Dante. We have Dante and Aisha coming to.
He's a good dude, man. That is a good man.
I see people talking about, they do seem like they are serious, but we definitely have them coming together, so that'll be great. But his ability to maintain his composure is admirable. And like I said, if I was a guy, I would definitely not want to chase a girl down a dark alley. But I commend a man that is protective, because we do appreciate that gentleman. But we shouldn't, as a woman, we shouldn't take advantage of that. We can't speak to that. I just wanted to ask your opinion. But when we saw Phil talking about it, and we saw Shiloh also having a conversation with Tommy about it, what bothered me about that conversation was, okay, so you don't want him to pick you up. But if you don't want him to pick you up because you don't want to be touched, and you're going down a dark alley, if he had turned his back and immediately walked off, because she said, well, he could have just followed her. That to me says that you're just not really serious. You're playing.
You're in for the chase. Now, details, right? It said that the circumstance was 4 or 5 in the morning, right? Tommy was like, "There's no reason y'all should be outside," right?
Yeah.
4 or 5 in the morning. 4 or 5 in the morning. Washington D.C. nightclubs anywhere only on weekends close at 3 o'clock. On weekdays they close at 2. So if you're outside at 4 or 5 in the morning and it's raining outside and you're not in the car, you're getting soaked. An individual who's trying to deal with like your competitiveness or the conversation in general, both of them getting soaked. They're standing outside. One person is truly calm. The other storms away, goes down an alley in DuPont Circle behind a nightclub. There's, I mean, let's not make light of it. Like there's homeless people. There's the possibility of an assailant or a predator, or there's just a random individual. He sees you go down an alley and you're a woman who's dressed, somewhat attractively and might have a purse on you. If they don't see Phil, they follow you, right? Yeah. Phil, on the other hand, is like, guess what? I took all of this time, maybe 2 hours total, to be outside with you. I'm not just going to let you walk off. Like, I sincerely do want to get you home, regardless of we end this in a good way, or if you hate me at the end of the day, I still want to make sure that you got home, because that's my whole point. He was literally just trying to make sure she was safe, regardless of how it played out. You know what I mean? Also, why bring this up at a nightclub? Why bring it up at a nightclub? Especially when you know that the show's not over, so you still have time to figure out your relationship. He shouldn't have had to been forced into that conversation. But something like didn't sit well with Shiloh, and that never got talked about. And that's their conversation to have, but it never got talked about. And that's really what made her just think about it. You're not just drinking and having a party and just having a good time, and then out of nowhere you're just like, oh, random thought.
Not at all. And I'm just saying, for any of the guys watching this, Crystal is telling you, as Black, you all don't have to do that. If a woman, if she's storming off down, you tell her, as long as she has, because you can't, that it puts him in a position where he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. And I'm not saying that men should not be respectful, because I appreciate it. But sometimes, because it's if a woman says you touched her and she didn't want to be touched, you can go to jail for that. So I'm saying, I would tell my son, if you're talking to her and she turns around and walks down a dark alley and she's not drunk, she has her full capacity, and she just wants you to chase her, you don't have to do that, and it's okay. That you are not.
I would give this caveat. I would give this caveat to the circumstance is like, yeah, you don't have to, right? But I'm a natural born protector. Like, I truly just want to see everybody safe. That's why I own up to my shit.
What do you think was the right thing to do in that situation?
All right, so the circumstance there is like, what we need to know is like, Phil picked her up like Bam Bam picks up pebbles, right? Like, he picked her up and was like, hey, let's just go this way. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, let me grip you and like yank you and walk you away. But that is a trigger for her because of whatever happened in her past. It's just anybody stopping her path of decision making, right? But in that same value, guess what? I would say, and I've said this to Phil, I was like, yeah, maybe the right thing wasn't to pick her up, but you're already wet, you're already out there, and you're already concerned. Just watch her. If you're really down, my G, walk with her to wherever the hell she wants to walk to. Because you got a cell phone, you can call an Uber eventually, you can get back to your car, you can get her home. There's so many options. So like, intentfully, you're doing the good thing, but eventually you become the bad guy or somebody that can be perceived as a monster because of the fact that, like, you literally did one thing out of character or one thing that just didn't sit well with that person. And that changed the entire narrative to now you're being physical and you're an abuser, comparative to like you're being unruly and not understanding of the fact that we shouldn't be here to begin with. Phil's one man. DC crazy. Like, like at 5 o'clock in the morning, anything can happen.
I think as women, you have to, just stop. Just stop. I mean, that's that. I'm not a man, so I don't have that need to protect all women. But if she's going down a dark alley and it's my son, and because you don't know what she's gonna do after, but to say that you can just follow me, like, it's raining, I don't want to follow you down a dark alley. I want to go.
I give him kudos for at least trying. I give him kudos for going through it. I know that it's also messed with both of them, throughout this. So, being that I'm more so his friend than hers, not saying that I'm not her friend. We just haven't talked or discussed it in an extent, knowing a lot of details and whatnot. I just try to give him some grace because the fact of the matter is, like, his heart was in the right place, and that ultimately did push him away from her, which gave him more time to focus on Sydney. You know what I mean? But during that time period, when that happened, we were like a week and some change out from, the finale. So the truth was, it was like any decisions that were really like, deep down inside, like amongst all of us, like we're pretty much, there.
That's at the end. Frank, what did you learn about yourself You did like self-reflection. I love the fact that you went to therapy. What did you learn from this experience about yourself?
I've gone to 14 weeks straight of therapy, right? And one aspect of it, right, is that I don't need to control every single detail of my life. You know what I mean? Like I can relax. I can, know that not everything is going to work out in my, favor, but then also not be burdened by it, right? Taking circumstances day by day. These are just personal things for myself. When it comes to relationships, I learned that I was out of practice, right? And to further the conversation, since nobody, it's some people's elephant in the room, right? I was out of practice also courting or suiting Black women, right?
Okay.
That's my last relationship was with a white woman, right? If people want
And
to
that
say
was
that,
the woman that was that the woman that came.
she was somebody that I dated for a short period of time, like
Okay.
never
But
a
she
girlfriend.
wasn't a 4-year relationship that you
No,
were
no, no,
talking
no, 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 absolutely not. No, Leah was not my 4-year relationship, but that woman was actually white. And then the woman before that was Latino. And I've had multiple African American girlfriends, specifically like actual African girlfriends growing up. And then, and also like slept with just kind of like the whole rainbow, right? So just acknowledging, the elephant on the table, right? So I just had to be real with that. The
Is
other
that
aspect.
Hold on, Frank.
Mhm.
I do have just a question as a woman.
Yeah.
There a huge difference in this the chemistry and the conversation and the vibe with a non-African American woman and other. Did you notice a big difference in that?
Everybody's different. Like every
Mhm.
single person, even if you're a twin, you came out at a different time. So everybody's different. You gotta give people that type of care and grace.
Yeah.
But what I will say about African American women is, there is or Black women, because not everybody subscribes to one or the other, right? So what I value in the African American woman is the first person that I ever loved, right? Like I literally, the first women I ever loved were Black, were brown, did have melanin deeply inside of them, and that is something that I assert on a daily basis, because the African or Black or melanated woman is literally the most non-discerned woman in society. Like literally, the
We
world
know
has. Yeah, I know, and so
you are
so
aware.
I take strong value in always trying to put them first in any conversation. Not even just Black men. Black men sometimes full of shit. But Black women, on the other hand, like literally, like we need to stand up for them more and more, because there are so many different circumstances where they just don't get the highlights and the love that they deserve. So that's my only way of answering that question is yes, because there is not enough people that value the Black woman in society currently. You know what I mean? So you just got to give them a little bit more. In my regard, like if you're the person I care about, that's all you're going to get. Like I have such a strong and high capacity to love. Like I've just been waiting to give it to the right person. The issue is that I knew that I need to let go of some of my I need to let down some of my barriers. I didn't realize how vulnerable I was in certain circumstances, or how much I was guarded because of some vulnerabilities. And so I learned to work through that.
Because you were hurt. So are you basically just telling us that you got hurt really badly and you really probably hadn't healed from that?
There is a big portion of me being hurt to an extent that like I just didn't know what the next relationship was going to look like. And as much as I wanted to, put on the best face and be a great man, it was only time that was going to it was only time that was going to lead to that. You know what I mean? And so it sucks that, because some people, like I've heard the word experiment, right? Like this was an experiment. It wasn't a fucking experience. It's real as day. It's non-scripted reality TV. You know what I mean? Nobody tells us what to say or what to do. Like, hence why some people need to be held more accountable than they actually are. But me, with my intentions, when I was dating, when I'm on set, somebody right in front of me, every bit about me. There's no way that you can't. Like I open up. It's the second I close the door, I'm, by myself, where my thoughts start to run. You know what I mean? Because you don't have my undivided attention at that very moment. You know what I mean? And those were some of the circumstances that, I had to work through to get to a better place, to be able to smile on a daily basis, to, feel like genuine man in a positive role in society. And I do feel like I've gotten to that, so I'm happy with who the hell I am and how much, I've had to grow even within the last 6 months since we started recording back in July.
Yeah. So with that being said, I wonder where do you see the situation with Mumen now? Is this something that you think will go past friendship, or do you think you're just not sure where it's going to go? Are you dating other people now? Like, where are you at individually at this point?
Individually, I'm open to dating, but that's a recent development, right? I want to find my significant other. I don't necessarily want to wait, but like I'll wait as long as it takes for it to be right. Mumen, on the other hand, is me and her are pretty much friends, really close friends, really close friends. We value each other. We talk when we're around each other. It's easy, she puts a smile on my face. I love seeing her success. But there was more that I learned about her from being offset and off the camera that, doesn't necessarily resonate with me as like my future woman, my future partner, but as somebody that I'm going to care about forever.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess the other question about dating would be moving forward. Will you approach things differently?
Absolutely.
Are you able to be as vulnerable? Because I think that's really the key to being successful is being able to be vulnerable and not, being able to let go of that fear and really giving another person a real chance. Do you think you're able to do that?
The answer is yes, like strong yes, right? But to add more to that statement, it's for me, for a long time, I really thought that like, I had it all figured out. Or at least thought that like I was at a place where, when the right woman came along or a woman that, I really felt great about, that I would be able to, match their energy and vice versa. And this was a learning lesson. I literally found out that, that wasn't actually the case. And I took that for what it was. And I also took Mumen's words seriously. And I also applied myself to an extent where it was like, hey, guess what? Like, if you're open to it, if you want, to push forth as friends so that there's just full transparency in our conversation, allow that to be the case. I just want to make up for the fact that I hurt you in any capacity. And so, I'm every part of my life, people who know me, my family members that love me, the people that I've made relationships with, like I feel very strongly that I'm like really high on their trajectory of like who a person should be, an example of like a good human, right? So, the time will tell that I find that one, and then, I can make every woman in the world jealous of our relationship. Like, I really want that.
Well, you're 35 is young, and will, if you really want that, you'll definitely find it when you're ready for it. I think it's better to wait and really be ready. So if that was what you've shared with us tonight is how you felt, then you did the right thing by backing away. I don't know, definitely could have done it in a better way
better way. Because let's call it what it is, right? Like I'm always honest. My name is Frank, so definition, direct, straightforward, honest. I just want that to be out there for people who want to call me anything else. There is a term, right, that like I had to really look at myself for. It's called gaslighting, right?
Yeah.
And so like I didn't want to gaslight Mumen, but in some circumstances of the definition, that's exactly what I did, right?
And then go there, kind of go.
And no, ghosting would be like intentfully never wanting to talk to you or like really being that.
No. Ghosting is when a person is emotionally invested, you just kind of disconnect and disappear, and they don't know why.
Right.
Because there's actually a show about that.
All right. Well, then if that's the case, then it's not gaslighting. It's more so ghosting, because that's what I'm getting at, right? Because gaslighting would be telling her things that weren't true or telling her that my feelings weren't.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case. Like my actions during the time period that we were together were very sincere and we were very happy. So ghosting would probably be the better term for that. And the sad part about that is like I do know how that feels. Like I know how that feels because I got friends who've been ghosted, and I don't really, because I don't date that often. No, it hasn't happened to me specifically, but at the end of the day, like, do I realize, how it played out? Am I honest with the fact that like some people will see me as what I see? What was the comment? Fuck boy, F boy, something like that. But that,
Yeah, boy, but
F boy, right? Yeah, but like, those things don't bother me because like me keeping it real, me keeping it honest, that's how I structure myself. Because at the end of the day, it does allow me to be a better human.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you owning up to that. And I really wish that I wish you success with that. I think therapy is important for everybody. And I think that a lot of times men don't admit when they're hurt. And when you guys get hurt, you have to deal with it the same. You can't talk about it as much as we do. But I think saying that and acknowledging it and being a great example for other men to let them know, a lot of times it's not, ladies, when a man ghosts you, this is a great example to see. It's not always about you, because when we get ghosted, I've been ghosted before. I know I've ghosted some people, and I've been ghosted probably before. Can't think of it right now. But what I do know is when things didn't work out with a guy, I always thought it was because of me. And this is a great example. This interview is a great example. It had nothing to do with her. It had everything to do with you and you trying to figure yourself out. And I think that when we're open to someone and we like them a lot, and then they don't respond to us the way we expected, we feel very bad about ourselves. We feel rejected, right? And no one wants to feel like that. So I admire the fact that you're acknowledging you had some stuff you needed to work on. So I'm going to let that go. I want you to tell me, because I saw that you have a drink, and I like to make sure that in addition to talking about you guys, love and relationships that everybody is dealing with in a different way, just the rest of us are not doing it on TV. But we do get a chance to talk about the other stuff going on in your life that, being successful at. And I saw that you have, it's not an alcoholic drink. It
is. So it's called Daring. Yeah, it is alcoholic. So it's called Daring Kombucha Cocktails. I am the proud owner of a new genre and style of kombucha, being that the market beverage world, after we went into quarantine, we realized, we're on House Party, we're on IG Live, and we're still drinking while still trying to like stay safe. Right. Well, hard seltzers came roughly around 3-4 years ago, and they led a lot of the wine focused, health conscious, fitness and wellness individual towards low carbs, low ABV, low sugar, low calorie. Right. So from that point, I was able to create something at my own bar here in Washington, D.C., which then turned into one of my friends who got invested in vegan pork rind snacklins on Shark Tank by Mark Cuban. He became my initial investor. And he was one of my old chefs, and really loved what I was able to do. But yeah, I created a fair trade verified organic kombucha that is incorporated with 100% non-GMO organic cold pressed juices and purees. And then finally, I incorporate actual premium spirit. So we're talking vodka. Yeah. So it's all canned 12 ounces. And so you're getting actual spirit, you're getting actual quality ingredients, as well as kombucha. So you're getting health and wellness due to the probiotics, the gut immunity, the blood circulation aspects of it, as well as you're getting quality ingredients across the board that are not only helping the local economy, but then are also like stimulating kind of like specific entities like bee conservation, because I'm one of the only companies that's using honey as my sugar accelerator, and then I give back proceeds to UC Berkeley, or that's the intention, is to give back proceeds to UC Berkeley, who has a huge bee conservation program, to kind of help us, because at the end of the day, they pollinate, which leads to more trees, which leads to more oxygen. And then lastly, being first to market in an industry that doesn't have any melanin representation realistically within their ownership and their operation. I just know alcohol really well. And so at that point, it's like, I needed to produce something beyond just, a quality product, but I also needed to produce something that nobody else was thinking about. And this is actually the second time I've done that. I also have a product called Drink Lock Reverse Coasters, which actually prevents the possibility of potential predatory assault and date rape. It's a coaster mat So that's my true love child. That's the entity that leads to the most social reform and like I care about the most. But it was created with me and my best friend 7 years ago, and we needed to perfect it. But in essence, it's the condom of the beverage world. It's a coaster mat that it's a coaster mat that you get at a bar, and when you need to leave your beverage unattended, whether it's stranger danger, dimly lit, you need to step outside and smoke a cigarette. The top layer of it is a removable adhesive seal that then can go over top of your beverage container, and it becomes a physical barrier to deter the possibility of anything getting inside of your drink. So when you remove it, it actually leaves a transparency that is a tamper evident seal. So it allows you to visually see if somebody's broken the seal or tampered with your beverage. And each one has an individualized serial number. So it allows you to also identify, say, like drink like 101, drink like 102. You go to the restroom, the number is still the same, as well as you haven't seen the voids. Then that means that you're pretty much foolproof to continue drinking your product. And so
that's cool.
So right now, like those are my biggest ventures that this year, like hands down, I'm finalizing right now. I have some pretty solid investors that are allowing me to produce.
You have a drink near you. I wish I had one when I saw that. I was like, oh, hey, I didn't know I was talking. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I'll cheers for you.
Well, no, I wanted just to be able to see what it looks like. Let people know.
Oh, a drink clock. Here, so
the kombucha.
I don't have one. I don't have one literally like in this room. It would take me a second to go get one, but I can. All right, cool.
Okay. Right, yeah. Well, people can go to can follow you online to see it. But I definitely would like to make sure that we support it. You guys, I had to rush out here to talk to Frank, and I wanted to show you what I do. I did get in the mail today Sean's book, so I'm excited about that.
Yes.
And then I'm going to share, we'll have Sean come back. But yeah, I got his book, came in the mail. So I just want to make sure that we support the people that are, that watch this show and watch the channel. We want to make sure that they can support, what you guys have going on.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yep. So let people know where they can find more about the kombucha. That's interesting because it seems healthy and also with a little bit of a kick to it.
Right. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you still want to imbibe and enjoy yourself, right? But then also the last part is like you want to take care of your well-being. And that's the wave of the future right now, is to be able to get quality inside of your body, but also do the things that allow you to live your life and have fun. So the company, the Daring is Daring Kombucha Cocktails. Very strong on the kombucha cocktails because it doesn't exist elsewhere. And daring, just like myself, audaciously bold and adventurous, as well as the people that I want to, consume it. So, Drink Daring is the IG that you can find information. And as we produce my brewery right now, when that's all said and done, I plan on putting it in just about every market in the United States of America, if not further out. Drink Lock is the IG for Drink Lock Reverse Coasters. And it's one word. So DRINK and then LOCK. And then, of course, DRINK DARING for Drink Daring.
Okay, so Drink Lock and Drink Daring. And then you can follow you on social media. Your personal page is
Drink Mills. So a lot of D's. Drink Mills. It's my name, Frank Mills, but instead of the F, just swap it out for a D.
Cool. That's cool. Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, Frank, thank you so much for hanging out with us right after the reunion today. You were a great guest. I hate things didn't go the way we wanted them to, but things always work out the way they're supposed to. So I know that, like I said, you'll find that special woman if you stay on this path. And we appreciate you coming and sharing your side of the story.
Thank you. I appreciate you as well. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And good luck with the Drink Daring, and also I love the Drink Lock. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Women need to. Everybody needs to do that.
Yeah, so that's that. I mean, that's really what it's about. Anybody in a social drinking setting, whether you're drinking milk or you're drinking alcohol, can be protected because people can make anything. Household products, obviously, certain circumstance and pills. But at the end of the day, it's for women who, of course, are the highest majority of the demographic that get predatory assaulted, but also for beverage contamination, children as well as men, because there's so many reasons why somebody would be a predator. And just hoping that, we can, lead to some level of conscious social reform that eventually one day we don't even have to have the conversation. It's just not happening anymore.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Well, again, we appreciate you. We will definitely be watching the second half of this reunion. And hopefully we'll all get a little bit more closure on next Friday. But have a great weekend.
I love these comments, by the way. They have been making me laugh this whole time.
Yeah, and they love the fact that you are in the comments reading. I try not to read them all the time because
I just catch a couple every so often. They're funny. I have fun with that level of circumstance. Eventually everybody will get to know me if they want to.
Yeah. Well, we again, like I said, we appreciate you, and you gotta take the good with the bad, right?
Right.
Part of being on reality TV. So. All
All
right. Well, I'll get you out of here. I've had you an hour and 30 minutes. I appreciate it. And like I said, we'll definitely check back in. We have some new stuff come out. Hopefully you'll come back and hang out with us again here on Rolling Out.
No doubt, Crystal.
All right. Thanks, Frank. Have a great weekend.
Cheers. Have a good one.
All right. All right. Well, thank you all for hanging out. What an interesting conversation we had tonight with Frank. You guys definitely have to check out next week's reunion. I don't even know where we can go after tonight, but I did see that we saw to storm off. And when we come back, we saw in the previews, we saw Corey having an emotional moment. So this train is not anywhere near done yet. So there's definitely more coming. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation, but I want to say to the comments, because I know that we always have issues with sensitiveness about certain things. I definitely want to make sure everybody understands I am not making a judgment. I was giving my opinion, and my opinion is based on what we saw, but we're not, none of us know exactly what happened there in DC because we weren't there. So I definitely don't mean any harm to Shiloh. I don't mean any harm to Zadi or anybody, but what we have to do as journalists and as a host of the show is be honest about what we've seen on television, whether that's the edited version or what. We have to be honest about that. So I appreciate you guys understanding that. And this chat tonight has been extremely entertaining. I appreciate you guys commenting and engaging, and definitely we'll have more on Monday. On Monday, we have Mumen. We have, like I said, eventually we'll have Dante and Aisha, I think maybe next Friday. So you guys definitely tune in. And we got more coming. And Owen just announced that Ready to Love is coming back the very last weekend of this month with an all new cast right back in DC. So, no break. We're going right back into it. I have the trailer coming up on Monday. So definitely want you guys to check that out. And then let's talk about these new singles. Are we going to, we got 2 couples out of this. Are we going to get another couple out of the new season? We'll check it out. But Ready to Love coming back. We'll be back on Monday with Mumen. So I'll talk to you guys then. I love you for watching. Have a blessed weekend.